Okay, we're already live on the ILPS Facebook page and we've already shared the live stream to Facebook groups. So, yeah, anytime, Glennis, you could start.
Okay.
Thanks.
We'll start in 30 seconds. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Wherever you are, we welcome you to the global launching of the Global Month of Solidarity with Kurdistan. We offer you our greetings of solidarity and peace. We are currently live via Facebook and Facebook Live and via Zoom. And we will now start our global launching. Coincidentally, today, November 1, 6 years ago, it has been declared as the World Kobani Day. World Kobani Day was initiated by the Kurdish Freedom Movement and its supporters at the time of the ISIS siege of the city of Kobani in 2014. The heroic people's resistance in Kobani turned the tide against ISIS and made the freedom fighters international symbols of liberation. It also drew world attention to the Rojava Revolution. It is therefore very fitting that we start our global month of solidarity with Kurdistan on this very significant day. And to introduce the month of solidarity with Kurdistan and welcome the speakers and participants, let us hear from our very own ILPS chairperson, Len Cooper. Len Cooper, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. A warm welcome to all of you from the International League of People's Struggles. Welcome to the formal launch of a month of solidarity with the people of Kurdistan, who are fighting to stop the occupation of Kurdistan, to stop the fascism of the Turkish state and its President Erdogan, and to stop the isolation of the Kurdish people's leader, Abdullah Öcalan, in a Turkish prison. The International League of People's Struggles stands in militant solidarity with the people of Kurdistan against the fascist oppression and occupation of their land by the Turkish state. And we support the call of the Kurdish people to stop isolation, stop fascism, stop occupation. We also support the demand of the Kurdish people to free their leader, Abdullah Öcalan, from the Turkish jail, along with all other political prisoners. This also includes the demand to immediately stop the current complete isolation of Abdullah Öcalan in prison. The ILPS is a global organisation with over 450 mass people's organisations spread across all continents. And the ILPS has called on and is calling on all of its member organisations, networks, supporters and friends to mobilise in support of the Kurdish people's struggles throughout the whole month of November and of course beyond. The official launch of the monthly campaign today on the 1st of November, as has been explained to you, is itself a very significant date in the struggles of the Kurdish people. The 1st of November is the anniversary of the liberation of the Kurdish city of Kobani by the heroic Kurdish people's freedom fighters and the liberation from the ISIS terrorist occupation. The Kurdish people performed a great service to the world's people by defeating the ISIS terrorist forces and helping break the back of ISIS occupation. Now the world's people must unite with and support the Kurdish people to defeat the terrorism and fascism of the Turkish state. Today, therefore, we are not only launching our month of solidarity with the courageous struggles of the Kurdish people, but we're celebrating World Kobani Day for the liberation of Kobani. During our month of solidarity, we'll be dealing with and learning from speakers, films and online events about the key issues impacting the struggles of the Kurdish people against the Turkish government's fascism and against imperialism. We thank you for participating today and we thank you for your support. Please support the month of solidarity with the Kurdish people. Free Iceland, free Kurdistan, the time has come. Long live the heroic struggles of the Kurdish people, and long live international solidarity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Len Cooper, for your opening remarks. And before we proceed to introduce our speakers, um, we would like to remind the attendees in Zoom to please turn off your video and your audio if you're not speaking, so that we will have a smoother connection for this afternoon's event. Thank you very much. And we have uh, very good speakers for this afternoon's event. And but before that, I would like to remind the attendees and all those who are tuning into our Facebook Live that there will be a question and answer portion after all the speakers are done with their speeches. And you may post your questions on the Q&A box if you are on Zoom, and you may post your questions on the comment page of Facebook Live if you're on Facebook. You can post your questions while the webinar is ongoing, but we will entertain them and we will read them once the speakers are done with their speeches. So for our first speaker was born in Ardahan, northern Kurdistan. She is a member of the Executive Council and spokesperson for the Commission on Foreign Relations of the Kurdistan National Congress, or KNK. She went to Germany in 1976 as a child of Kurdish migrant workers and studied biology and political science at Bremen, Germany. Her current primary political focus is the improvement of national dialogue amongst political parties and civil society organizations in Kurdistan. In addition to promoting unity efforts, Niloufer Koç is active in the international arena, raising awareness of the right to self-determination for the Kurdish people as a means to protecting ethnic and religious aspects of Kurdistan. She is keenly interested and engaged in the active and autonomous participation of women in all fields of society and politics. She has conducted intensive research on the definition of femicide and is part of the effort of recognizing femicide, similar to genocide, as a crime against humanity in international law. Currently, she is the spokesperson of the International Commission of the Kurdistan National Congress. She will be speaking on the geopolitics of the Kurdistan struggle and the Turkish project of isolation, fascism, and occupation against the Kurdish people. Please welcome Niloufer Koç.
Thank you, Glenis, and thank you, Len, for your introduction. And we most appreciate the launching of the month November for the Kurdish Revolution by the ILPS. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to commemorate all the fallen revolutionary of Kobani and the whole world, all those who fought for the rights of people, for justice and equality. When we're remembering our martyrs, we do it also for the all fallen revolutionary worldwide. So the 1st of November is reminding us that we paid a high price for our demands of freedom, justice, and democracy. Still, we are continuing the struggle. And Kobani was a day which shows that if you are well organized, if you have a political system in which all people can participate with their autonomous characters, so you will be then able to defeat every kind of challenges like we had in 2014 of the Islamic State. Of course, it's not just the issue of a small terrorist group, the fight against ISIS. Its instrument became very vital for the hegemonial powers to divide the whole region of Middle East in the concept of the Third World War, like we have experienced this in the imperialist First and Second World War. So we are speaking about the new designing of a very strategic region, the region of Middle East. Some say it's because the region is full of resources, natural resources like oil, but we prefer to say no. It's more important to see the region of Middle East as a center of civilization and also a very geostrategic location. And in this region, the region of Kurdistan is very central, has a central position. After Kurdistan was divided in Middle East between Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and Syria, and both on four of the states became key states for global players in the time of the First World War. After the time of First World War, it was a bridge between the Warsaw and NATO Pact. So the Kurdish card, as the center of the Middle Eastern issues, became a bargaining instrument until the foundation of the Kurdistan Workers' Party in 1978, which was founded by the Kurdish people's leader Abdullah Öcalan. So this is the Kurdish card, the division of Kurdistan in between of four states was a clear imperialist strategy. So through the Kurdish cause, let's say they made the people to a problem by policy of annihilation and denial. So that means that nearly 45 million people are not recognized in any of the constitution of the states. So, and all the states, the nation states of Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and Syria became hostile to the Kurds. And the Kurds, they never give up to fight for their freedom. Next to the Israeli-Palestinian issue, the Kurdish issue was one of the central points of the key issues of the key problems, conflicts of the region. And with the foundation of the PKK in the last period of the 20th century, so Öcalan and the PKK tried to make to discover the problem as an international problem. It was a problem which was created by the imperialist European states, mainly Britain and France, during the division, during the splitting of the region after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. So, and the Kurdish revolution succeeded to show the world this is not a Kurdish problem. This is a artificially created problem. And the discussion was how to solve the problem. So we experienced a lot of other revolution in the 70 years, the so-called national liberation struggles. And then Öcalan said, well, we can't follow just examples. We have to need our own solution because the Middle Eastern region is different than the revolutions in Africa or in Latin America, other countries. The decision was we need a we can solve the problem by democratizing all the nation states of Iran, Turkey, Syria, Iraq. So through this, then we can democratize a very important part of the world, the region of Middle East. So that's why solidarity with the Kurdish struggle doesn't mean just supporting the Kurds by the struggle for self-determination. That will be very narrow-minded vision. So because the vital part of the Kurdish revolution is of course democratization, a solution of the Kurdish, using the Kurdish card for democratization of the region. That's the main global aspect or the regional aspect of the Kurdish struggle now. And today, after we have organized the Kurds, there's national awareness amongst the Kurds in all four parts of Kurdistan. And there's also awareness about democratization of society. So this is the vital part of the revolution. We started to change our society at first, and then start to organize the mass movements against the occupiers, occupying states, Iran, Iraq, Syria, and Turkey. And now the level, sorry, now we achieve the level where we can say, well, we are practicing a solution locally, but it has also global impacts because, as you know, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, the start or the declaration of the Third World War was done by the crisis of Gulf by the US, and Kurdistan was center of the war. So then there was a radical change in the Kurdish movement. Say, well, this is a time the old system collapsed. There's now a political vacuum where we can then improve our solution, the solution of democracy. So since 20 years, we are busy, or since 30 years, we are practicing a concept of democratization, because not just us as the Kurds, the people, the Arabic people, the people in Persia, in Iran, the people of Turkey, the workers, women, all other ethnic and religious components, they all need freedom against a very narrow-minded, racist nation states. So we are practicing democracy without the states, called the solution of democratic confederalism, which means a stateless democracy. So it means there's no need to change the borders. So um, if you can practice in your own local areas autonomies for all people and cooperation between the autonomies, then there's no need to fight to make changing the borders. And I guess Salim Muslim will can give more examples, because he is now in Rojava, in a place where the democratic confederalism is it's practiced already. So, but today, and this is the main part of my speech, we achieved the level where we said, well, even during a very hard war, like it's happening now in north and east part of Syria, in Iraqi Kurdistan, um, a war for where the global and the regional powers are trying to get much as possible from the cake. So we are speaking about the Third World War. So the US is looking for the interest, implementing the US interest. Russia is doing the same. China is in the backstage, but is active also. And then there are different European countries, like France, like Britain, like Germany, all of them. And then, of course, Arabic states. So all of them are trying to benefit from the current chaos in the region. I would say they're one of the members of one front, and the other front is the solution of the people, the grassroots democracy solution from which we implemented already in North and East Syria, which we try to do same in Turkey. So there are two ideological wings clashing now in the land of Kurdistan. I can say, even however Iran and the US has now conflicts, I'm sure one day they can cooperate, but they will never cooperate with the solution where the Kurds are improving. So because as a revolution of people, it's a grassroots democracy revolution. The other one is just using the ethnical religious components according to their benefits. That's why the Kurdish solution is not welcomed by Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and Syria, but also not welcomed by the European states and the US and Russia, since it's a project of democracy which is based on the grassroots. And for weakening this revolution, so they have all chosen to use Turkey as a instrument, the current Turkish government, as a tool of destabilization. They know that Turkey is hostile since the beginning of the foundation of Turkey in 1923 until today. Turkey is hostile to the Kurds and all other ethnic groups in Turkey and in the region. So, and that was one of the reasons why many forces has closed their eyes when ISIS was growing in the region. The problem became when ISIS get under the control of Turkey. So Turkey is now using many different forms of jihadists in the region. Firstly, they tried to do this in North and East Syria, but they were defeated after the victory of Kobani 1st of November. So now Turkey is continuing as the mainly power behind all the jihadists, and try to destabilize not just Kurdistan but whole Middle East. Since Turkey has their own concept of Greater Turkey, which means creating pan-Turkism covered by pan-Islamism to get back their hegemony on the former area of the Ottoman Empire. So the clear aim is not Islam, it's Turkish hegemony. I would say it's a sub-imperialist move what Turkey is practicing today. And because the Western states, some European states and US and Russia were not able to accept the Kurdish solution, because when you bring the people together like we did it in Rojava and other parts of Kurdistan, we say the coexistence of different ethnic groups. So then that means nobody can use Arabs against the Kurds, and nobody can again use the Christians against Kurds. So what we did, we stopped the policy of divide and rule. So all the hegemonial powers, that means, has lost a very vital instrument of policy of hegemony. So in these, they're using Turkey because they know Turkey is hostile to the Kurds, and say, okay, we keep blind eyes. You can you implement your solution of a greater Turkey. And Turkey has now free hand to occupy Iraqi Kurdistan, and Turkey has already occupied three very important parts of northeast Syria, the Kurdish region of Afrin, Serik, and Sipi, and now it's busy with occupying northern part of Iraqi, southern part of Kurdistan, means northern Iraq. But then we have seen this year that Turkey's problem is not just Turkey was using the PKK as a pretext, saying, "Well, I'm it's my right of self-defense." And since the PKK is a list of many list of different countries' definition of terrorist organizations, so I have my right of self-defense. I'm fighting against the PKK in northern Syria. I'm fighting against PKK in northern Iraq. But then Turkey was intervening in the Mediterranean Sea. Turkey was invading in Libya, in Somalia, in Mali. Turkey is invading politically in South Africa, in India, in every country where they have Muslim communities. So then you ask, okay, the first pretext was PKK. What about occupation of Libya? So what are you doing now in Azerbaijan and Armenia? So that's all this move of Turkey made clear that Turkey is used as an instrument of destabilization of the global players, because some of men benefiting from the current role which Turkey is playing. Turkey is attacking and others are coming rescuing they are coming as the saviors for the people. That's why they are still continuing to keep Turkey as a strategic ally of the NATO. But since Turkey is using much more the ISIS, they're training, they're educating in the Kurdish regions which they occupied, like in Afrin, Serik, and Sipi, and sending the jihadists even to Armenia and other places. So Turkey became now global threat. So it started with as a threat to the Kurds, but now became a regional and global threat. And internally, Turkish regime under Erdogan is really implementing fascism against the Kurds, particularly in Turkish part of Kurdistan, which we call Bakur Kurdistan, northern part. It's a total new fascism which is implemented. We have now thousands of prisoners, and all the Kurdish municipalities were confiscated by the state governors. But it seems Turkey will continue with threatening and attacking the Kurds and trying to continue with this policy of occupation. And the first message was given in 2015 that Turkey will try to, implement a political genocide against the Kurds. Political genocide means if you are weakening the leadership of a revolution by arresting politicians, parliamentarians, mayors, intellectuals, that means you then practice that mass movement can act with the leadership. So this is the political genocide which we define as such, and it starts when they put more threat on the Kurdish people's leader Abdullah Öcalan in 2015. So we say the policy of occupation of fascism starts in the prison island of Imralı in 2015, because it was a year later we defeated ISIS in Kobani in 2014, and the world was behind the Kurdish revolution, and Turkey then was forced to, by their perspective, they have seen they have to use as much as possible violence against the Kurds after the Kurds gained the very global solidarity after Kobani and declared war in 2015. The first step was practiced on the prison island on Imralı, because they have knew that all the solidarity with Kobani, with the Kurdish revolution in Rojava, was a result of Öcalan's strategy, the strategy of democratic confederalism, the strategy of building a grassroots democracy based on coexistence of all different of the diversity of different ethnic and religious components, as well as democratization of the Kurdish society through the liberation of women. So the Turkish state knew all these were result of Öcalan's ideological concept, and that's why they started the war firstly against him by strengthening the regulation on the prison island of İmralı. But the good thing is now, and I will close my speech then, the good thing is they defeated Turkey as their ally of NATO. Russia has supported Turkey for their interests in Middle East, but now Turkey became even threat to them. So now step by step, many of the international organizations are reacting against Turkey. And as you have seen, the attacks, the barbaric attacks, which we are really condemning, the barbaric attacks in France now, slaughtering people on the streets in Paris, Lyon, Nizza, showed what Erdogan means when he's speaking about political Islam. So he became a problem to France even now, became internal threat to France even. And now we see that they have defeated such a fascist state, and this fascist state is now attacking their own allies. And recently, the Parliamentary Assembly of Council of Europe and the Committee for Prevention of Torture of Europe, they all were criticizing Turkey very hard. It's the first time they are now raising the issue, the necessity of implementation of international law for Abdullah Öcalan, the Kurdish people's leader, and they are now talking and criticizing Turkey very hard. And more and more reports are now being prepared against Turkey by Greece, by France, by other states and international organizations, and solidarity with the Kurds. And that's why I think we appreciate when we heard that ILPS is going to launch a month of Kurdistan. In this frame, solidarity means a common fight against fascism. So Turkey is not just looking for their own benefits, but also they know that others need Turkey's policy of destabilization for their own interests. So solidarity with the Kurdish fight, struggle, revolution means defeating fascism, growing fascism and threat to all people of Middle East, not just the Kurds, threat against the Arab people in Libya, in Mali, in Sudan, in Somalia, in the people of Cyprus, of Greece, and France. So, and I think this is the right time to come more together to see the Kurdish struggle or revolution from different perspective, not just as a national liberation movement. It has more revolutionary global revolutionary characteristics, and as such, it must be supported as such, not just so solidarity with the Kurds means defeating fascism in the region, which is implemented by Turkey and supported by imperialist states. And in this, I'm very happy that we will have more actions in the whole month of November as a month of solidarity for the revolution, for the Kurdish revolution. And I'm sure as much as support we get, I'm sure that any support we get from different parts of the world will encourage our people, heroic people in Rojava, heroic people in Turkish part of Kurdistan, Iranian part of Kurdistan, Iraqi part of Kurdistan. I'm sure we will be able to open new gate as a hope for all the oppressed people and women in a very important part of the world, the Middle East.
Thank you very much, Niloufar, for your meaningful contribution. And Niloufar reminded us that when we are in solidarity with the people of Kurdistan and their struggles, it's not only with their struggle for self-determination, but also the democratization of the Mediterranean region and the Middle East region. So if you have questions for Niloufar, you can type that in the question and answer box, and we will address that later. And yeah, it is very important that we do not lose sight of our solidarity with the people of Kurdistan and their calls to free Öcalan from the Turkish fascist state. And we will hear more about that with the next speakers. So for the next speaker, uh, I would like to introduce Ludo de Brabander. He is a Belgian peace activist. In the past, he was the spokesperson for major peace demonstrations against the Iraq War. He has written books on the West Asia situation, such as War Without Borders, which was published in 2016, and Het Kurdish Utopia or Kurdish Utopia, published in 2018. At present, he is the spokesperson of Vrede Visitway, an organization that pushes for international peace and social justice. But due to some unfortunate events caused by the pandemic and the subsequent measures in Western Europe, he can't be with us live. So let us then listen to the pre-recorded discussion on the geopolitical context of Erdogan's expansionism and fascist rule, which Nilufer already introduced, and its impact on the Kurdish people and struggle. If you have questions addressed to him, you can still ask that, and we will forward it to him, and we will find means on how to reach you by email or by Facebook, the Facebook of ILPS. So let's hear from Ludo de Brabander.
Dear friends, thank you to give me the opportunity to speak to you at this important conference. I'm really sorry that I have to address you in this conference by a video statement. I'm in the south of France, and due to the new lockdown in France, I'm forced to leave the moment this conference will take place. I have to return back to Belgium. So I'm really sorry for that. When I joined the Musa Enter Peace Train in 1997, it was my first time in northern Kurdistan, or Bakur. Musa Antar was a writer and poet murdered in 1992 by a Turkish counter-guerrilla force. He was one of the many victims of the military regime in charge that time, resorting to a scorched earth policy. Thousands of villages have been destroyed or evacuated, causing millions of internal displaced persons. Turkey, as an important NATO country, was not stopped by its partners. On the contrary, it received arms, and the US and the EU listed the PKK as a terrorist organization, blocking political solutions and giving Ankara a pretext to continue its war policy, restricting fundamental freedoms and perpetrating massive human rights violations. Though the beginning of the Erdogan era looked promising with political, economical, and judicial reforms, soon he turned the page towards authoritarianism. After 3 rounds of negotiations between 2008 and 2015, he finally aborted a political solution for the Kurdish problem. After the failed coup of 15 July 2016, he started combining pan-nationalism and pan-Islamism with an extremely hostile rhetoric towards his opponents, mainly the movement of Fethullah Gulen and the Kurdish movement. Since the repression in Turkey began reaching extraordinary proportions, with tens of thousands of people losing their jobs and many people behind bars, parliamentarians included. Hundreds of media outlets had to close, with some of them turned into governmental mouthpieces. In 2015-2016, Erdogan's military apparatus put several Kurdish cities under curfew and destroyed some of them, killing hundreds of people. He made clear that he will use military force to those who oppose him. Under the AKP government, the Turkish state has gradually dissolved the separation of powers. Erdogan combines legislative, judicial, and executive power in a centralized nationalist power system that in its characteristics resembles in many ways to fascism. On the foreign front, the war in Syria was a turning page for Erdogan's geostrategic ambitions, using the war against Daesh in northern Syria as a pretext. The Turkish army and extremist Salafist militia invaded Syria for the first time in 2016 to block a successful liberation war led by the YPG, the Kurdish military wings of the Autonomous Administration of North and East Syria. In January 2018, Erdogan's army and Syrian mercenaries invaded Afrin, up to then a peaceful Kurdish enclave in the west of northern Syria. This was repeated in October 2019 in the border area between Serikaniye and Girispi, and each time this has been followed by a repressive occupation policy and human rights abuses. The Independent International Commission of Inquiry on the Syrian Arab Republic published last summer a report presenting its findings from investigations conducted in the first half of this year. In Afrin and the surrounding area, the report documents how the Turkish-backed Syrian National Army may have committed war crimes of hostage-taking, cruel treatment and torture and rape. In the same region, several civilians have been killed or wounded by large improvised explosive devices as well as during shelling and rocket attacks. These forces, known as the Syrian National Army, are composed mainly of mercenaries from all kinds of extremist Salafist tendencies. They are trained, armed and paid by the Turkish government. The Turkish meddling in Syria doesn't stand on its own, nor is it only directed against the Kurdish liberation movement. It is part of an ambitious neo-Ottoman project that must ensure Turkey's international influence and expansion. A few months after the uprising in Syria, Erdogan already expressed his wish to create a buffer zone of 30 kilometers throughout northern Syria under Turkish military control. The occupation of those areas would match the map of the National Pact from 1920 to create a greater Turkey as dreamed by Erdogan. These invasions are clearly in breach with the UN Charter, but the resolution tabled on the 11th of October by some EU countries in the UN Security Council condemning the Turkish invasion was vetoed by the US and remarkably also by Russia. NATO Secretary General Stoltenberg only declared that Turkey is, and I quote, at the forefront of the crisis and has legitimate security concerns, and he added that NATO was informed by Turkish authorities about the ongoing operations in northern Syria, asking only to, and I quote, act with restraint. A few months later, in February 2020, Stoltenberg expressed NATO's support for Turkey in Idlib, declaring that, and I quote, NATO continues to support Turkey with a range of measures, including by augmenting its air defenses. In June 2020, the Turkish military launched operations called Claw Tiger and Claw Eagle in North Iraq, using drones, airstrikes, and other military operations, announcing as well the establishment of 3 more new military bases. This means that Turkey has currently a total of 40 military bases in Iraq. The international community remains silent, although Baghdad often condemned the Turkish military operations as a flagrant violation of Iraq's sovereignty that causes the suffering of civilians in the area. The Turkish military presence in northern Iraq is consistent with the 1920 Pact. These military operations against the PKK are supported by Iran. Both countries established a tactical alliance against the Kurdish liberation movement, although both states are rivals in Syria. Since the beginning of this year, Turkish airstrikes have attacked Kurdish fighters at the borderline between Iraq and Iran. And at the same time, Iran has also increased attacks against Kurdish fighters in Iraq. Turkey's neo-Ottoman politics are not limited to the neighboring countries. In recent years, Turkey has expanded its military presence in many areas, from the Middle East to North Africa. In Libya, Turkey has intervened militarily and organized a counter-offensive on the side of the government of national accord in Tripoli against Khalifa Haftar's Libyan National Army. In Somalia, it opened the largest military base outside the country to train Somali soldiers. But more important is Somalia's strategic location at the Red Sea. Turkey also signed a military agreement with Ethiopia and Niger and plans to sign similar agreements with Chad. To facilitate his expansionistic regional strategy, Erdogan has also built very recently a military base in Qatar. Turkey's expansion in the Eastern Mediterranean is a strategy called Mavi Vatan, or Blue Homeland, which is connected to Ankara's meddling in Libya. In December 2019, the Turkish government signed an agreement with representatives of the Turkish-backed Tripoli government. The agreement is based on a mutually expansive maritime border between the two states, causing tensions with France, Cyprus, and Greece. In July, following clashes between Azerbaijan and Armenia in Nagorno-Karabakh, Ankara joins the military side of Azerbaijan, starting a proxy battle in Nagorno-Karabakh by deploying Syrian mercenaries in the war, launching military exercises with the Azerbaijan army, and training its officers. Turkey has become Azerbaijan's third largest supplier of weapons. Turkey's arms sales to Azerbaijan have even increased sixfold this year. Turkey and Azerbaijan have strong economic, military, cultural, and linguistic ties, and Erdogan has invoked saying that the countries are one nation, two states. Turkey's international policy is shaped by a new doctrine of pan-Islamism and pan-Turkism and is deeply suspicious of multilateralism. It urges Turkey to act unilaterally when necessary. But Erdogan's adventurism has come at huge economic and political costs. Costs that, unfortunately, the Turkish people will have to bear because
Hello everyone. Apologies for that. We're just going to switch the video showing. So before we go back to Ludo, yeah, it's true that there's an ongoing militarization of the Eastern Mediterranean now, especially along the coast of Cyprus in between Turkey and Greece. So in recent weeks, but actually starting last year, the Turkish government has started deploying a large exploration vessels to Eastern Mediterranean, and it's not shown on the world news all the time, but a lot of the organizations that are fighting against Erdogan's fascism in the region are already campaigning against this encroachment, these attacks, and Turkey's deployment of um, not only exploration ships for minerals and oil, but also armed uh, uh, vehicles and armed uh, uh, ships. So, um, is it okay now for the video? So it's also worthwhile to see how NATO shifts its treatment of Turkey, because it's true that for a long time NATO has been supportive of Turkey's attacks in northeastern Syria in Rojava, while the Kurdish People's Protection Units and Women's Protection Units are really busy fighting the ISIS, the Daesh group that are sowing terrorism in that part of the region. Um, and yeah, so now we can proceed with the video.
the military side of Azerbaijan, starting a proxy battle in Nagorno-Karabakh by deploying Syrian mercenaries in the war, launching military exercises with the Azerbaijan army, and training its officers. Turkey has become Azerbaijan's third largest supplier of weapons. Turkey's arms sales to Azerbaijan have even increased sixfold this year. Turkey and Azerbaijan have strong economic, military, cultural, and linguistic ties, and Erdogan has invoked saying that the countries are one nation, two states. Turkey's international policy is shaped by a new doctrine of pan-Islamism and pan-Turkism and is deeply suspicious of multilateralism. It urges Turkey to act unilaterally when necessary. But Erdogan's adventurism has come at huge economic and political costs. Costs that unfortunately the Turkish people will have to bear because, as the Turkish president waged his battles to claim leadership of the Muslim world, Turkey's economy has sunk. Turkey's currency, the lira, is in a bad shape. It hit a record low of 8.34 against the dollar, coming from 2.8 5 years ago. It has lost 26% of its value this year. Inflation in Turkey reached 11.7% last month. So the Turkish central bank has raised its inflation forecast to 12.1% for this year. The pressure arising from Erdogan's foreign adventures is straining the country's budget, as the military, by one estimate, is eating up a quarter of government spending this year. A lot of that spending is going to Turkey's defense industry to make the country independent of arms imports. Erdogan has spent heavily developing the Turkish military industry, whose turnover increased more than tenfold in less than 2 decades to $11 billion last year. It's now the 14th largest in the world, but it still doesn't have the technological depth to make Turkey militarily independent. It still relies, for example, on important components, most notably the engines needed to power its biggest platforms. Turkey is neither a big technological power needed to create modern weapon systems. It ranks 35th among 60 countries in the Bloomberg Innovation Index, behind Portugal or countries like Romania or Greece, its arch enemy. Erdogan's repressive policies and cronyism have also sparked a brain drain, especially since the crackdown following the 2016 failed coup attempt. In recent years, Erdogan has resorted to an aggressive foreign policy, changing diplomacy for an adventurous military policy. This puts him more and more on collision with countries in the Middle East, such as Egypt and United Arab Emirates, but also with Western countries such as France and Greece. If the US presidential elections turn out to be a victory for Biden, this could also lead to more tensions with the United States. The diplomatic and economic costs thus add up. The COVID-19 crisis makes things worse. As a result, Erdogan's popularity is also declining in Turkey. It looks like Erdogan's Turkey is going into imperial overstretch. It's likely to conclude that Turkey will be forced to review its foreign policy in a post-Erdogan era, hopefully, to make it economically and politically sustainable, or to create a sustainable future. This is needed, it also includes a political solution of the Kurdish question based on a full respect of Kurdish rights. Only then a prosperous and peaceful Turkey for its people will be possible. Thank you very much, and I emphasize that I express my full solidarity with the Kurdish struggle. Thank you.
Thank you, Ludo. And since he's not here with us, if you have questions about his input, you can type it in the chat box, in the Q&A box, or you can post it on Facebook comments. So without further ado, I would like to introduce the third speaker. The third speaker is Faik Yakizai. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Faik, while he was a teacher, was arrested and imprisoned in 1991 due to his political activities in Kurdistan and Turkey. When he came out in 1994, he completely devoted himself to Kurdish politics. After working at the political party HDP, or the People's Democratic Party, for 5 years in Istanbul, he came to Europe in 1999 because of the risk of being sent back to prison or even forcibly disappeared. Since then, he has been representing all political Kurdish parties in Turkey. He's now representing the HDP, or the People's Democratic Party, at the European institutions in Strasbourg. His topic will be on the situation of political prisoners as well as the current situation of Turkey. So please welcome Faik Yakizai.
Thank you very much. for giving me this opportunity and for your solidarity with our people, with Kurdish people. First, I want to know the exact time, because you said that you have 5 minutes each speaker, but now it is 50 minutes and only 2 speakers could speak. And we don't know how much time will be for us and for answers and questions. So can you tell me, please, the exact time I have?
You have around 8 minutes, Fike.
Okay, thank you. Now, when we listen to our friends, of course, they gave a broader explanation and description of the Kurdish situation and the situation of Turkey, the position of Erdogan, and in the region. So I will try to concentrate on North Kurdistan, on Turkey, because we believe that Turkey is the main handicap before the political solution to the Kurdish question. When there is an opportunity in one part of Kurdistan, we see that Turkey acts before that the state which is occupying that part. For example, when we have an opportunity in Iraq, Turkey acts before Iraq. When we have an opportunity in Iran, again, Turkey acts before Iran, and in Syria is the same. So that's why the main problem for Kurdish question is Turkey. That's why we concentrate on the developments, on the situation of Turkey in order to find a solution to the Kurdish question. When we look at the current government, when Erdogan came on power, he said that he will find a political solution to the Kurdish question. And he said that Kurdish question is his question, and Turkey has made mistakes in the past. Turkey is a big state, and a big state should meet with its history and accept these mistakes and try to find a solution to this. And he said, I will find a solution to the Kurdish question. Another argument of Erdogan was to bring Turkey closer to the European Union. And he said that I will bring Turkey closer to the European Union. I will join the European Union. I will make Turkey as a member of the European Union. And another argument was to economically, socially, politically empower Turkey in the region. That's why he got support from the Kurds, from Turkish population, and even from the European Union, international powers as well. But that time he was powerless, and he needed power. As he got power, he became more anti-democratic, more aggressive, and he showed his real face to everybody. And when he became more powerful, he started to insult the Europeans. He started to go backward in Kurdish issue, and economically now we see that Turkey is in a crisis. So if we, of course, try to find a solution to the Kurdish question, we should analyze the situation of Turkey, the current government, and try to find an explanation for this regime, and of course to try to defeat this regime and then go forward. Erdogan now he is of course politically very weak. We defeated him many times. For example, in elections 2015, for the first time our party passed 10% threshold, and we got 80 members in the parliament, and Erdogan lost the majority. After this election, he started to stop the peace process and started to follow more violent policies against the Kurdish people. And recently, in local elections in 2019, we again followed a policy and we supported the opposition in major cities in Turkey, and we defeated him everywhere in Istanbul, Ankara, Izmir, Adana, Mersin, Antalya. In big cities, he lost the municipalities, the local elections there as well. And now he is politically very, very weak. So that's why the only tool in his hands is the military, the weapons, the violent policies that he is using now. Even before he started to use this tool against our people, in Rojava, in South Kurdistan, in North Kurdistan, everywhere. But now his only argument is this, and not only in Kurdistan, but now, in Mediterranean Sea, in Libya, in Azerbaijan-Armenian conflict, and still he is active everywhere around the region. So he's, on one hand, yes, he is being used by big powers, it is true, but on the other hand, he has an agenda. He has an agenda to follow his national aspirations in the region. He sees himself, Erdogan, as an Ottoman Empire, and he wants to have the same power as the Ottoman Empire had in the past. So he wants to have the region which he lost, especially in the Lausanne Treaty. They say the national borders, which includes the south and Rojava, Kurdistan. So at least he wants to include this in his region. That's why he is following this aggressive politics. And now, especially, he's concentrating on South Kurdistan, because he knows very well that without defeating or at least hitting the PKK in the mountains, it's impossible to overcome with the Kurdish question and to be successful in the other regions, in North, in Rojava, and the others. So now, together with America and some forces in South Kurdistan, he is trying to attack the PKK guerrillas and that region, to occupy that region. And then if he succeeds to occupy there and to hit a blow on the PKK, then it will be easier for Turkey, for example, to attack Rojava, to attack the other parts of South Kurdistan, for example, Shengal, to Mahmur, and even all South Kurdistan as well, and the region of Rojava, which is now under the control of SDF forces. So when we look at the inside of Turkey, he is attacking our party, putting our friends in prison. Now more than 5,000 of HDP members, executives, co-chairs, mayors, and a lot of friends are in prison. Why? Because Erdogan politically could not defeat us. Every time recently we defeated him, and he started to, of course, put our friends in prison or in exile, in this way to extend his governing period. At the moment, as we said, we, for example, in our municipalities, it is 2 times that we defeated him, but after the elections, he's been defeated, he decides to dismiss our mayors, put them in prison, and appointed the trustees to act as mayors. Their governors are appointed as mayors in Kurdish regions. In the previous period, it was about 100 mayors were dismissed and the trustees were appointed. And now again, 59 of our mayors have been dismissed and the trustees have been appointed, and many of them are in prison. Many other friends are in exile now. So this is the policy of Erdogan now that he is following in Turkey. Of course, if he can silence us, he will go on the other opposition as well, and CHP, the other parties. But now he sees our party and our people, our struggle, the most dangerous struggle for himself. So that's why he is first coming on us. But of course, we are struggling. We are struggling and we are resisting. And even 5,000 people are in prison. Now we are still active. We are still over the 10% threshold. We are still functioning in Turkey, and we are still defining the politics in Turkey. And this makes him mad. And we don't know what he's thinking about the future. Some people are saying that it's possible that he will close down the party, but he did it in the past, many times they did. They closed down about 7 parties in the past, but we came more powerful. So he knows this very well. If he closed down our party, then we'll come more powerful. And I think that he knows this. Yes, of course, it makes our struggle more complicated, more difficult, but he knows that as we become more powerful, we don't know whether he will try this again or not. So it's important for us, for our struggle in North Kurdistan, of course, to be active against the imprisonment of Mr. Öcalan, because we all know that the situation of Mr. Öcalan is a key question for everybody. Yeah, they have put 5,000 people of our party in prison, and they are accusing all our friends of being linked with the PKK or being members of the PKK or being supporting the PKK, etc., etc. And the imprisonment of Öcalan gave them this opportunity internationally, especially as the PKK is in the list of proscribed list of European Union, of the United States, and some international powers. This gives this opportunity to Turkey to use it against everybody in opposition in Turkey, and especially our party. So we have to concentrate on the main problem. The imprisonment of Mr. Öcalan is the main problem before the solution to the Kurdish question. That's why we, as HDP, are concentrating on finding a solution to the imprisonment of Mr. Öcalan. We should struggle for his freedom. And not only breaking the isolation, but also for his freedom. Because we believe that if Öcalan becomes free, then it's impossible that the current Turkish regime can stay there. It will go. So the solidarity groups of our people, the solidarity friends groups in the world are doing a very important job to concentrate on freedom of Mr. Öcalan. It's very important to go on this struggle, to empower it in the world, and to really to empower this struggle to find a solution to the situation of Mr. Öcalan and for his freedom. His freedom means the end of this regime. His freedom means the freedom of Kurdish people. His freedom means the freedom of all Middle East and the world. In the world, of course, there will be a very big opportunity for democratization of the world. That's why we say that freedom of Öcalan is our priority, the priority of all Kurdish movements, and we want our friends also to continue their struggle for freedom of Öcalan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Faik, for your input and for emphasizing that the decision of Turkey to hold Öcalan in isolation in the island of Imrali, and how it's supposed to destroy the spirit of the Kurdish revolution. So thank you. We will proceed to our last speaker. Our last speaker is Mr. Saleh Moslem. Saleh was born in 1951 in Kobani in Rojava, Kurdistan. He graduated as a chemical engineer in 1977 from ITU University in Turkey. He worked in Petromin of Saudi Arabia till 1990, and then he returned to Syria to work in a private engineering office as a member of the Syrian Engineering Association. Politically, he was among the founders of the PYD, or Partia Yakitiya Democratic, or Democratic Union Party, in 2003. Now he sits as a member of the co-presidency council of the said party. He is currently staying in Kamishli, Rojava, and he will discuss on the situation in Rojava and northern Syria. Mr. Saleh, you have the floor. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to express to you. And I am glad to be with you to explain what we are doing in Rojava and, of course, in Kobani. I would like to thank all the people which shown the solidarity with the Kurdish people in Kurdistan, and removing the isolation of the Mr. Öcalan. Well, I would like to mention some main points which to make the issue understandable, I think. Now, what we are facing, this situation is not planned now. It's a long time have been done maybe since 1919s. What I would like to say is some major points which should be remembered. I mean, to understand this conflict going on in the Middle East and in Syria, in Kurdistan. First of all, we are talking about Mr. Öcalan. Mr. Öcalan was founder of the Free People. His mentality and ideologically, maybe he's a summary of Mr. Bookchin and Mr. Gramsci and the other philosophers in the ancient times, and so he's a very full people for the mentality of the humanity and how to be liberated and to organize the societies. So he was able to arrange himself, to organize himself, and to organize his people. The differences between him and the other, I mean, thinkers like Gramsci and Bookchin, he was able to establish the instruments to make these changes, I mean, accessible on the ground, so he can implement what he's thinking of, which was the organization of PKK and organizing the Kurdish people, and he is supported by all the Kurdish people. So this is the first point. The second point is the international hegemonian powers. They started to talk about the changing the Middle East, to establish the new Middle East. All you remember, I mean, it was in 1991, 92, during the war in liberating Kuwait from Iraqis. Some of them, they started to talk about the new Middle East. So it's new arrangements for the Middle East. So, and they started to make plans how to change the Middle East, maybe since 1995. There were 2 points for that. One of them, what kind of Middle East they want to arrange. They were thinking about the moderate Islam, moderate Muslims, and they tried to make Turkish as a state, I mean, an example for that, for all the Middle East and the countries. They started to support these streams, which means the Muslim Brotherhoods, as they see as a moderate Islam in the Middle East. And the big role should be for Turkey to do it. It can lead this approach to change the Middle East. So the big role was for Turkey. And because of that, they established maybe in one day or just in a short time, they just established AKP, and they chosen Mr. Erdogan to lead it, and he became power in 2002. But before that, they had to get fed up of rid of Mr. Öcalan, because they saw that Mr. Öcalan and his ideas and his foreseen power, I mean, for future, could be an obstacle for their plans, especially in the Middle East and the Kurdish people. So the conspiracy started with capturing Mr. Öcalan in 1999. And then after 2 years, they just put Erdogan in the power in Turkey, established a new party, and the party became to the power in Turkey in 2002. And then they started what to do. We can refer to this idea in the foreign minister of Greece, when he said in 2004, he said, well, I understand what they have captured Mr. Öcalan, because if they didn't do so, they couldn't invade Iraqi. And he was speaking in 2004 in the court of Greece, I think in Athens. So this is most important. So it means all these global powers, they found Mr. Öcalan as an obstacle for their idea. So they had to remove them. So because of that, he is still in jail. And what happened, I mean, for the Turkish side, they were a part of this conspiracy or this change in the Middle East, leading it as a moderate Muslims, but also they had their own idea, which is the ambitions of the Turkish nationality to establish a new Ottoman Empire from new. So the movements in Turkey were supported by NATO and the Western countries. And actually, they started to make these changes in 2010, starting from Tunisia, and then came to Syria and Egypt and all you know. I mean, you were following that movements, what happened, I mean, there, because maybe in Libya, it was very clear when NATO started to strike the Mr. Gaddafi's and powers and to invade, and still is continuing. So they were using this Muslim, and they wanted, I mean, the hegemonic powers, they were looking to put the moderate Islam in the power in all these countries, led by Turkey as a leader for this stream, I mean, in the Middle East. And then if we look at the history also, there were two examples for that. The first one was in Iran, when they supported Mr. Khomeini from, he was in Europe, and then they supported him there when he became on power in Iran, and then Iran went out of control. It's the same situation for Erdogan too. When this fighting started in the Middle East, I mean, starting from Tunisia to Egypt, and then came to Syria, also Erdogan started to go out of control by using these powers, because they were looking for the moderate power, I mean, moderate Islam to be governing in these countries suddenly because it was difficult for them. They need a power to fight and to struggle. So they established this ISIS and the similar organizations, just like Jabhat al-Nusra and the other powers and so, and they started to, especially, I mean, in Syria. So this is the situation now. And Turkey, which is out of control now, they are trying to make their own plans. It was supported before by NATO, but all the hegemonic powers, and even for establishing this some extreme streams. I mean, in the Muslims organizations and so. And then now, if we come to the struggle of the Kurdish people, I mean, of course, I mean, their plan is to dismantle all the Kurdish movement, even the Kurdish people, and to just to I mean, finish the Kurdish people in overall. This was the plan of the Turkish state when established, because they find the existence of the Kurdish people or the Kurdish state or the Kurdish Kurdish rights. It means the following of the Turkish state. So this was the complex they are living in it. So Turkey was implementing the plans by the hegemonic powers from one side and trying to finish the Kurdish people from the other side. And because of that, they have established ISIS. They have established Daesh. The point was, Daesh was established in 2014. And they went easily to Mosul. They occupied Mosul. And then they came to Raqqa, to Deir ez-Zor. They were well-organized cities, and they were protected by the soldiers and so. And very easily they could occupy all these cities like Mosul. And then, of course, Shankar, you know what happened. And then they came to Deir ez-Zor, they came to Raqqa. But why they didn't? They couldn't. They were not able to do the same in Kobani, which we are living the day of Kobani today, which is, of course, I mean, the global day for the struggle against the terrorism. So why they didn't? They failed to do it in Kobani, because Kobani was organized and they had the idea of Mr. Öcalan. So it was organized themselves according to the ideas of Mr. Öcalan. So they came to Kobani and they stopped the struggle. As we know, the Kobani, it wasn't supported by anybody. It was just their own resources, and the Kurdish people, only they were supporting them. And I am from Kobani. I know very well what happened. I mean, struggling against the Daesh. It's not only Daesh, because it's on the border. It was supported by Turkey. And the latest attacks in that area, they came from Turkey, just directly through the border to Turkey to destroy Kobani. But they failed to do it. It's just because the people, they were believing in Öcalan's idea, and they were organizing themselves according to these ideas. So this is the very important point. I mean, if you compare it with the Raqqa, with the Deir ez-Zor, with the Mosul, which they were big cities and felt just few hours in few days, why Kobani was resisting to the end. And then it was a start for defeating ISIS in Kobani. It's just because of these ideas. And now, of course, Turkey is still continuing. And maybe just a few days ago, Mr. Faik also pointed there were many arrests in Turkey just because they want to get revenge of this, what happened in Kobani, the victory which the people could gain. In the Kobani, they are making the revenge of it. Kobani was supported by everybody. So, and of course, all the powers, I mean, we are talking about NATO, maybe we are talking about United States, and even later on, there was a Russia in 2015 when they came into the Syria. They are looking for their interests. And they are trying to make some conditions for Turkey, which they have fed Turkey, they supported them, they supplied them with a weapon. And of course, everybody knows, I mean, when they occupied Afrin and other places, they were using NATO weapons. So they are trying to do something, but just because maybe the overconfident of Mr. Self-confident by Erdogan, and he thinks that he became bigger power. He just became a bigger, I mean, threat for all the people, as you know what I mean. But this, he's getting his power from these countries, and still maybe even the drones and what they are using these weapons is still supplied by the Europeans, by NATO, by the others also. And he just became a threat for everybody. I mean, the examples is in front of the eyes. I mean, in the Mediterranean, in Cyprus, and maybe in Greece, he's trying to even collapse what they have agreed in Lausanne in 1923 with the Greece for the border. And so they just want to dismantle it to make new situation. So this is the dangerous for everybody. And I think the struggle of the Kurdish people, I mean, because of the situation is important for all the world. First of all, the Kurdish people, they were able to do, I mean, to defeat ISIS, which was dangerous for everybody. We are still, I mean, suffering from it in Europe. And so maybe the French example is one of them, even these days. So we have defeated this, I mean, organization, terrorist organization. Can we think, I mean, if we didn't do so, what will happen? I mean, living with a Daesh as a state, as a power, and spread all over the world, what will happen? So it's very dangerous. So we Kurdish people, we still think we are defending the humanity against the terrorism, and we are still doing so. So the Kurdish people should be supported in this way. The second thing, I mean, that Mr. Öcalan's idea is foreseen, able to analyze very well, and so, and the conspiracy for him to put him in the jail or in the prison now, it was just to cut his idea from the people. So he should be also out because he knows very well to do against the situation and bring the solution for not only for the Kurdish people, but also for the Middle East. And now his idea and his ideology is the main thing the Arabs are thinking of it, especially establishing this system, which could be an example in the north and east of Syria. Of course, maybe everybody knows, for the human rights, for the freedoms, and for the people how to live together, I mean, with the Arabs, with the Syriacs, with the others. So this is the model could be for the Middle East or model for all the people to live together. So this is what they feel, I mean, especially Turkey and other countries, they feel this is dangerous for them. And this is the why they are, I mean, making their attacks, and they are coordinating maybe with Iran also, and within the Syrian regime against the Kurdish people to dismantle this model which has established here. If you would like to make this model and the freedom and the living together with the people, I think, we think at least, I mean, Mr. Öcalan should be free, or he should be contacting his people very freely, because he can show the way how to get rid of all these problems. So this is the main situation we are living. I mean, we understand the ideology of Mr. Öcalan. It's liberation for all the people living together and democratic nation. So this is the idea, implementing the grassroots democracy in our areas, which we are doing already. We are doing it, and this is not accepted by the old regimes, and maybe just like Turkey and the Syrian regime and the Iranians. I don't know, maybe the hegemonic powers also, they dislike this model to be established, because there are still, I mean, some efforts to establish, I mean, to establish or they find or they foresee the moderate Islam could control and could be, I mean, in parallel with their interest and their benefits, which is opposite of what we are thinking. And still, I mean, in Rojava,
Saleh,
yeah,
sorry, can you wrap
yes.
up? Thank you.
Okay. Well, now still, I mean, in Rojava, in northeast of Syria, we feel we are under threat by the Turkish state, by those powers, and even for the Islamic dangers on those jihadists. So we need the support, and we would like also thank you, all this solidarity with the Kurdish people, with Mr. Öcalan, with northeast of Syria, and thank you again for you to give us this opportunity to address to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Saleh, for your insights on the situation in Rojava and in the entire region. And we will dive right in to the question and answer portion. We will start with the question for Nilofer, and then I will read the questions that have been posted in the Zoom chat for the other speakers. So the first question is for Nilofer. What is the role of the Kurdish People's Armed Forces, the YPG, and defense forces in the struggle for democratization of Turkey and other countries in the region?
Well, as we have seen in liberating Kobani, the YPG and YPJ, the women's units called YPJ, we have to understand the defense forces not a conventional army or not just a traditional revolutionary guerrilla fighters. These are very political acknowledged people. The democratization which we are asking to be implemented in a society is firstly experimented by women and men in the defense forces. So these are very clear and deeply ideologically educated people. And that was the reason why they could defeat ISIS, because ISIS fighters were also ideological people. We can't just say they are terrorists. They have a goal, they have a strategy, and they have tactics. So the reason why YPJ and YPG could defeat them is because they are also the opponent of a different ideological view. And as we have seen, the view of theirs succeed and get the victory against the ISIS and break down the new formed army of new fascism for the region. So, and they were the leading forces to encourage people to also defeat their own areas. So the good thing what the YPG and YPG did was training all the people for self-defense and encouraging also Arabs and the Christians, for example, is the first army which gained a lot of experience in defeating jihadist groups. And the democratic part and also the internationalist view of YPG and YPJ was important, that they give their experiences, share their experiences with other threatened people and helping them to create their own self-defense forces, like the one of the Christians, the Aramaic people. They have also now their army. And then all the Arab people who were against ISIS, for example, the Arabic tribes, they have also their armies now and gained from the experience of YPG. Firstly, they all were invited in the ranks of the YPG to fight together against the common enemy, and now they all have their autonomous arm, the self-defense forces. So as you can see, the role the YPJ played was encouraging others to be able for self-defense. This is very important for Middle East because everywhere the whole region is surrounded by war. Some say today there are 40 wars and nearly 400 conflicts, and the majority of these are happening in Middle East. So if you want to implement your idea of democracy, then you need the self-defense also. But the self-defense forces has to be able to understand democracy. So they had played a really leading power, a leading role, teaching people about the truth and reality of the very war zone of Middle East. And I think the other historical and very fascinating part of YPG was the women's unit, the women units. So the women units are not just powerful in using armed struggle against the jihadists. Moreover, they became very important by encouraging women for self-defense, not just Kurdish women, but also Arabic women and Christian women. And the other ideological perspective was overcoming any kind of patriarchally. So when the backward traditions, when all the societies with very backward society, culture, I mean backward in the meaning of patriarchy, the YPJ has shown they break down. They also had fought against patriarchy by saying, and we see patriarchalism as base of or the ground of whatever you say, capitalism, imperialism, aggression. So we do believe that patriarchalism is the ground of all that. And in the region of Middle East, where we have a religion like Islam, which needs really to be need urgent reformation and democratization, in these the role was more than defense forces, was more became a tool of educating people, changing the traditions of the region, in which women were annihilated as human beings, in which women are denied to take part in decision-making organs in the society, in civil society. So now you have thousands of Arabic women, Christian women who gained more self-confidence, and they have now their own women's units. It's a real social revolution. So it was led by defense forces, female defense forces of YPJ. And I think this is the historical contribution for democratization, social democratization and cultural democratization by overcoming the very backward of patriarchy of amongst Arabs, the Persians, and those who are using Islam as covering of patriarchy. So Islam is also became a part, became a interpretation of male interpretation. So, and I think the role of YPJ was historic for the first time in a region which was since centuries a war zone, in which women were discriminated, annihilated. So for the first time, women gained self-confidence, and it was also globally encouraging women against domestic violence, for example. So because self-defense is not just the issue defending yourself against armed groups, but also against any kind of violence. Self-defense starts when you gain self-confidence, self-trust as women, and then you can defeat yourself, even again defeat male dominance in at home, on the streets, everywhere. So and now you see more women, even in Tunisia, in Morocco, in other Arabic countries, who are looking carefully on the experience of the Kurdish women's defense forces. I think this is the key part of the move, democratize a region through liberating women, through giving self-confidence to women. So I would say this is the main part the YPJ and YPJ played in the last 9 years.
Thank you, Nilufer, for your answer and very insightful answers to the question, because it's a really an inspiration for a lot of movements, the gains that were advanced by the YPJ in terms of women's emancipation. So the next question, and it's addressed to all speakers, but I think it was a Faik who discussed this. So maybe Faik can answer the next question. The next question is, why is it important to keep Öcalan in isolation? And what is the most important reason why they consider him dangerous?
Um, yes, it is for Turkey. It's very important to keep Öcalan in prison and in isolation because ideologically, politically, they cannot comply with him. He is his philosophy is opening a new way, new gate for humanity, not only for Kurdish people, not only for Middle East, but for all humanity. And that's why not only Turkey, but also all big international powers also are acting together with Turkey to keep him in isolation, to keep him in prison. And as you know, we always say that the imprisonment of Mr. Öcalan, the abduction of Mr. Öcalan was not the act of Turkey. It was the act of big international powers and secret services who abducted him and handed over to Turkey. So it is an international comparison against the Kurdish people, the Kurdish movement, and Mr. Öcalan to avoid his philosophy to be spread out among the peoples in the world. You see, as my friends explained, when we see that the philosophy of Mr. Öcalan is being implemented in some region, we see that people are able to live together in peace with their own identities, with their own voices, culture, with their own will. So in Middle East, you know, in Middle East, the societies are very closed societies. There are a lot of radical ideological movements who are fighting each other, and generally not modern, not progressive forces who are now active in Middle East, but and sociologically, you know, the Middle East is really very difficult region. But despite all this, when we look at Rojava, the philosophy of Mr. Öcalan is being implemented there, and with this, we could stop the ISIS, which was a danger for all the world, which defeated the army of Iraq state, which defeated the army of Syria, and which really was trembling all the world. All the world was in a fear against the improvement of ISIS. But with the ideology of Mr. Öcalan, the Kurdish fighters, with very limited weapons, could stop them, could defeat them, and could now implement a democratic system in the region. So this puts all international powers, big powers, who have interests in the region and who want to preserve the status quo, don't want a change, don't want a democratic system in the region. This system puts them in fear and makes them to fight this. Otherwise, you know, everybody now seems to be against ISIS, but on the other hand, Turkey is supporting these jihadist groups, including ISIS, and the big international powers, namely Americans, Russians, are supporting Turkey. Even Europeans are supporting Turkey to be present in some parts of North Syria and Rojava, and supporting them to be there to prevent the philosophy of Mr. Öcalan. So it's important that the philosophy of Mr. Öcalan can be implemented, and for this, the freedom of Mr. Öcalan is very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Faik, for your answer. Our third question is for Saleh. What is the future of Rojava? Can it withstand the expansionist attacks by Erdogan? And in relation to that, what has happened to the proposal of the de facto self-government in Rojava to the Syrian government of a new constitution that would recognize it as an autonomous region in the area? Can you turn on your microphone, Saleh? You're on mute.
Well, thank you for your question and for your interest. Yes. Now, what we are seeing, I mean, we were able to establish a model in consistence with Mr. Öcalan's idea and living together with other people, depending on the grassroots democracy for the people, which everybody can feel free and express themselves as they want. So this model is disliked by many, many sides, the Syrian regime, the Turkish and the others, and also maybe by some this hegemonic powers. But if they want to get rid of this terrorism, I mean, in the Middle East especially, these ideas, the only element can find, fight against them is the Kurdish people by their organizations. There are no others. Maybe they are not able to do it. They are not sincere to do it. Especially, I mean, this is the Turkish fascism still supporting them, still using them in many places, sending them to the Europe, threatening Europe through them. So this is the why they are hesitating about what happened. I mean, if they can find anybody instead of these powers in the northeast of Syria, they would do it. But there is no other way. I mean, because at the beginning also they started to maybe educate and maybe some trainings for some people to use them against Daesh and those extremists, and they failed to do it because the people were trained by them. They just joined Daesh against them. So this is the problem. I mean, if you look at the power of the Kurdish people, organized Kurdish people, struggling, I mean, with the moderate, with the democracy, with inconsistence with the measurements of the Europe and the others, I mean, you wouldn't find more than the Kurdish people. And this is the why they are still dealing with the Kurdish people. I mean, this administration in the, northeast of Syria. In future, what will happen, I don't know. But all the people, I mean, maybe day by day, we can find more acceptance by the Arabs. The people are living beside us. We are in contact with the opposition of Syria and outside, the inside. We are trying to bring them together to make power, a democratic power, depending on the same idea. So I think the future will be ours. But we have to stand against those attacks, brutal attacks by Turkey, mainly occupying our, Afrin and Serikani and Tel Abyad. So we have to do with that. But what I would like to say, I mean, all the powers still, I mean, if we're talking about the Russians and the United States and international coalition, they are looking for their interest, first of all. But their interest is partially now is with the Kurdish people. So in future, I think some of them, they have to do, I mean, they have to coordinate. If they are sincere with struggling against the terrorism, they have no other way to coordinate with the Kurdish people, and especially in this area, northeast of Syria. If they want, they have different plans. I don't know what will happen, but in spite of all of that, we are depending on our resources. Maybe we could benefit for some conflicts between those peoples, but we are firstly depending on our people, organized people, and defending ourselves. And maybe your question was to Mrs. Niloufer about the YPG and YPJ, and those are self-defense units. They are not attacking anybody. It's just to protect the democracy and the people over here. But mainly, they just became, an example for the other nations to follow up to do the similar. So this is a good idea. It means they are expanding and widening among the other people too. For Syria, of course, we are separatists. We are looking for democratic Syria. We have our projects, we have our roadmap for that. We are dealing with all the sides to keep our model, I mean, in northeast of Syria as it is, and trying to expand, I mean, our projects and our ideas by persuading the other people to choose the same model. I think the future will be ours because there is no other way. I mean, just like for the Syrian regime, it's impossible to come back. And also for the, terrorism and those terrorist organizations which they are used by Turkey, there is no future for them because all the people, they get fed up and all their plans were openly, against those people, and the people are aware what's going on now. And this is the very important thing. And the aim of isolating Mr. Öcalan is not to have his idea and his views to come to the people, to show them. So this is why the isolation. And of course, we are also struggling for this, to remove these isolations. And we are happy about this solidarity by all the people over all the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Saleh, for the answer to the question. And for the next question, anybody from the panelists, from the speakers can answer. The next question is, how are the Kurdish diaspora organized right now in the struggle of the Kurdish people? I hope any one of you can answer it very briefly. You can just unmute yourself if you're going to answer.
Well, I think I'm the one living for a long time in Europe. I would say in the last 40 years of the Kurdish revolution, the main contribution of the diaspora was diplomatically. And we used to say that each Kurd, wherever they live in Australia or Canada, in European countries, in US or Arabic countries, they have to act like a diplomat. So we don't have paid diplomats, but we have thousands of, tens of thousands diplomats. So the people are quite active in their political demands. And the other thing was the economic contribution to the Kurdish revolution. So that's made the Kurdish movement economically independent, because the Kurds in the diaspora has paid the needs of the freedom struggle, and also we're supporting the Kurds wherever they are in need. Like when an earthquake is happening in Iran, in Kurdistan, the people in diaspora are sponsoring the needs of the people. The other thing is, similar to implementation of democratic socialism in Middle East, particularly in some parts of Kurdistan, through the people's councils, women's councils, youth councils, councils of different professions, there's a networking as a part of idea of them implementing democratic socialism in a neoliberal world. Particularly in Europe, this is a contribution to the left here also, because all the implementation are done very organized. So it's not issue of just individually. Since 40 years, the Kurds achieved to have their own networking and their own structures according to the laws in European countries. I mean, in that we were always careful not violating the laws. However, they do violating international law in case of Kurds when they're selling arms to Turkey, or keeping blunt eye on Turkey when Turkey is killing Kurds or practicing genocides. I think the well-organized structures of the Kurds became power in the diaspora, which are very seriously considered also by the governments. So whenever something happened in Kurdistan, we are able to bring thousands of people just in 1 hour time, like we have seen in Kobani. I think one part of the victory, one of the reasons of the victory of Kobani was that millions of Kurds everywhere in the world went to the streets in the midnight, when it was very critical hours of Kobani, for example, tens of thousands of Kurds everywhere went to the streets and then brought their friends in the countries where they lived together to the streets. So the role of the diaspora it has a vital importance for the liberation struggle in the country, in our homeland. And the diplomatic role we have now occurs in different professions who are really also helping to improve the Kurdish culture, Kurdish language. We have several institutes for searching and educating, teaching Kurdish language, because we don't have the opportunities in Turkey. It's forbidden because of the prohibitions of Turkish state, or in Iran. So what we can do, we have then our own institution of improving Kurdish language, and also we have several Kurdish TV channels. So the Kurdish media is morely based in the diaspora and contributed by the Kurds in the diaspora. As Faik was telling, so whenever a Kurdish politician is going to criticize Erdogan in Turkey, they will be arrested. But through the media, the different television channels the Kurds have in the diaspora, we are speaking to the people at their home. So the Turkey can't do anything of this. That's why the role what the diaspora was playing and is playing is very vital to the Kurdish freedom movement in 4 parts of Kurdistan.
Thank you, Nilofer. Faik, do you want to add something to that?
Yes, I want to add something to the comments of Haval Nilofer. Just I want to say that it is 21 years, nearly 22 years, that Mr. Öcalan is in prison. And normally, if the leader of a political movement is put in prison, generally, politically, he loses his power in the world when we look at the examples. But for the situation of Mr. Öcalan, it is different. It is because of the ideology of Mr. Öcalan, because of his always and constant renewation of his ideas and his philosophy. And the other thing is that always Kurdish people are on the streets to raise his imprisonment and to make awareness in the international arena, the awareness of Mr. Öcalan that he should be free. So the role of diaspora for keeping Mr. Öcalan on the agenda of the world all the times is also very important. It's 21 years the Kurdish people, especially in Europe, are on the streets. There is a permanent vigil in front of the Council of Europe. When you said that last week there was a decision taken by the Council of Europe, a report was prepared by the CPT or some other organizations about Mr. Öcalan, despite the PKK is in the list of the European Union, despite all the leaders of Europe see him as the leader of a terrorist organization, but these institutions are also putting him in their reports, in their resolutions, in their decisions. So this is because of the constant action of the Kurdish diaspora in the world. Whenever the Kurdish people are silenced because of the pressure in Turkey, in Iraq, in Iran, in Syria, in Kurdistan, the diaspora is a kind of breath, is a kind of oxygen for the struggle of Kurdish people, and Kurdish diaspora is playing this role. Thank you.
Thank you, Faik. And we're on our last question. Mr. Saleh, can you answer the last question on geopolitics, because we don't have a lot of time, but I think the last question will be for you. Is it okay?
Is it for me?
It's a geopolitical question, and I think because you discussed about it earlier also that you can answer the last question, which is a combination of 2 questions actually. how does Kurdistan weigh in on and steer itself around the competing geopolitical interests of the West, Russia, Turkey, and in relation to that, is China involved also in this situation?
So the question is for me, is it?
You
The
can
question is for me.
you can answer it, and others can add on it if we still have some time.
Okay. Okay. Well, in related to the other question which was asked before, I would like to say for the diaspora,
All right,
uh,
all right.
as the Kurdish people, I mean, for the struggle, we would like to be understandable by the Europeans and the other nations to understand what's going on in Kurdistan and our struggle, what we are doing, what's our idea, what we are looking for. And the diaspora is only the way can explain this. It's not for the governments, but also for the people, for the institutions, for the organizations over there. And I think what we are doing now, I mean, this webinar is a fruit of this kind of work together. I mean, to have a solidarity with the people because they understood what we are going. And for the geopolitical questions, I mean, the last questions you have asked, I think the Kurdish people, I mean, the Kurdistan as a country, is in the middle of the Middle East, I mean, which is the most important part of the world. It's important for everybody. It's not only for the wealth, I mean, of the oils and the others, and also for the strategic ways, for the energy and for everything. So the Kurdish, I mean, place, which is Kurdistan, is important for everybody and even for the interest of these hegemonic powers. So this is the struggle, I mean, how to get it. And of course, while they are doing that, I mean, the Kurdish people, which they are owner of this land, also they have their interests. So what happening, I mean, the Turkish and the Persians and even the Arabs, they don't want the owners of this land to get benefit about for their wealth and for this part of the country. They don't want, I mean, to sharing the other powers. As the Kurdish people, I mean, of course, maybe we have our interest. We should have relations with these powers. I mean, maybe even the Russians, the Americans, the NATO, the powers. As we know, I mean, the world just became a small village. I mean, all the interests for everybody is very complicated. So, but we are also looking for the interest of the Kurdish people. So we are not looking, I mean, for the war against the others, but we are looking for the peaceful sharing with the interests with the local powers and with the others also. So we believe the democracy and the freedom for the Kurdish people can be guaranteed for this interest for the even for the Kurdish people and also for others. Otherwise, maybe we have spent 1 century for fighting each other. I mean, in this area without any results, we wouldn't like, I mean, to do it. If we solve the Kurdish issue in the Middle East, it means a peace for everybody. I mean, locally and internationally. So I think we have to do it. Otherwise, I mean, you cannot keep the Kurdish people under pressure as it was all along the past century, in the 20th century. The Kurdish people are awake. They are looking for their interest. They are looking for their freedom. They are looking for democracy. Also, they have their, I mean, their own model for administration, which is convenient for everybody. So this is the future should be. We will have, I mean, some difficulties for that because we cannot change the mentality of the Middle East, which is depending on the fascism and chauvinism. But we have to struggle because there is no other way other than the resistance, which we are doing now. Thank you.
Thank you, Saleh, for the answer. And since we are running out of time, unless the other speakers have parting shots for this global launching, please do so. As a one sentence parting shot for each, perhaps.
I started, I will finish.
Okay, then I have to
I
go
will
on.
respond. I will respond to the question about China because I think China is important power in Asia. Just a few sentences. Until last year, there was conflicts between China and Turkey, but then there was a deal made between both states, and Turkey promised China they wouldn't raise the issue of the Uyghurs in Xinjiang in the region. You know, there are problems. Instead, Turkey became then US dollar from China because Turkey is economically bankrupt and it's a very deep crisis. Now I need money. Since they have trouble with European Union, they don't get so much money from Europe and also from the US. And because US it's in a crisis also, the only growing power economically is now China, and Turkey was getting financial support. China is benefiting from Turkish policy of expansionism, particularly in Caucasia. So Turkey is using pan-Islamism, for example, in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Kashmir. These are the countries where the Silk Road, the Chinese Silk Road, will go through the region. So there's a deal between China and Turkey, and since then Erdogan hasn't raised the problem of the oppression against the Uyghur people in China. And China is keeping silent when Turkey is, for example, involved now in Caucasia in the war, because by saying China, Turkey is threatening powers who are very not according to the interest of China. And on the other hand, China is benefiting from the current conflicts between. There's sometimes conflict between China and the Turkey and US, and China is trying to benefit from them because. Some say the world is now led by two hegemonial power. One is China, one is US, and both are using Turkey as a bridge for their benefits, and China is doing the same. In case of the Kurds, China is very silent, so not active, and all in all, China is acting very in the backstage, I would say, but there's a clear deal between China and Turkey in the last time. My final speech will be thanks to Öcalan, we could survive in the multipolar politics in the Middle Eastern region. In the multipolar means the involvement of US, Russia, the Arabic countries, Turkey, Iraq, Iran. And Öcalan was suggesting us to have our own perspective. He said might be that US, Russia, or other countries you can describe as imperialist powers, Iran, Iraq, Syria as sub-imperialist powers, but in the end they are the same, based on the same ideology. What we need is a becoming third power. So means the power of people, the power of grassroots. So the third way he was suggesting us, and according to this, we are more focused of implementation of our democracy on the grassroots and locally. But third way means also being very flexible in diplomacy, overcoming any kind of left dogmatism. For example, we never say we wouldn't speak to Washington or to Moscow. However, we knew that Russian government has betrayed us several times. We're not keeping their promises several times, but we do believe to keep continuing the dialogue with the states because we know our importance in the region. No one can act without us. So they have to take us in consideration because we are very loud in the region.
Okay, thank you, Nilofer. I think that's a wrap for everybody. Faik, your microphone is still on. One sentence as a parting shot.
One sentence. Okay. My friends said that Kurdistan is very strategically, geopolitically very strategical for the big powers. Yes. And additionally, Turkey is also geopolitically very important for big powers. And Turkey, after the Second World War, decided to be on the Western Bloc. But after the collapse of Soviet Union, you know, there are not a clear blocks there. And Turkey is now playing between the Western Bloc and Russia and using its geopolitical importance in this balance. And unfortunately, Turkey is, until now, is playing with both sides. And we are suffering from this because Europeans and West don't want to lose Turkey towards Russia, and Russia also want to get it from the West, and that's why both of them do not want to go over it a lot, and Turkey knows this. So the intervention and the occupation of Rojava is because of this. Now the Turkish invasion in Libya is because of this. In Azerbaijan is this. In the Mediterranean Sea is using this balance of its geopolitical importance between West and East. So I think it will not take long time, but Turkey is now at the moment using this importance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Faik. And we're ending our webinar today, but it's just the beginning of a month-long global month of solidarity for Kurdistan, and thus we would like to invite you and all other participants now, and please invite your friends and colleagues and comrades for the upcoming activities in November 2020. Now is the first day. There will be other webinars. The European solidarity with the Kurdish struggle, we will announce that on the Facebook page. And there's also a webinar on the Kurdish women's movement, and another one on women and isolation, fascism, and occupation. So that's 3 more webinars for the month. There will also be a film screening with a question and answer portion later this month, and a global day of action to free Öcalan and freedom to Kurdistan. And there will also be a cultural aspect of this global month of solidarity. So please tune in. Please visit the Facebook page and the website of the International League of People's Struggle. And thank you for joining us today, Saleh, Faik, and Nilofer, and all the rest of the participants and attendees for this webinar. The situation in Kurdistan is something that really deserves international attention and condemnation. And this is a good start for the world to know the struggle of the people of Kurdistan and how we can support you, how we can support the people of Kurdistan. And thank you very much. For more information on the upcoming activities, please visit the ILPS website, ilps.info, or go to the ILPS Facebook page. Thank you for your participation. Stop isolation, fascism, and occupation. Free Öcalan, free Kurdistan. Long live international solidarity. Good afternoon, good evening to everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Glenys.
Good evening for everybody.
Thank you to
and
the
thank you for
ILPS.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Have a great evening, afternoon. Bye.
Bye.